Lambda Lustrous is truly spectacular. Out of the few hundred series I've watched, few dozen mangas read, and just one light novel, Lambda Lustrous stands out in so many different ways. It is brimming with originality and beauty. In the past, I made 2 videos about this series, and despite both of them being pretty terrible, one got a lot of views. So I'm back to milk this rock once again, but this time with actually good content. Keep in mind it will contain spoilers, and I'll also warn you when manga spoilers come up. Sadly, the best parts about the series is not animated. I felt this pain so many times, and I'm still not dull to it. The story takes place on Earth, a Earth without Twitter. We follow a character named Phosphosylite, a childish little gem human thing who is pretty damn useless at everything, but tries her best to help other gems. She tries to be a warrior, but she doesn't have bras, nor does she have brains. She's a nuisance. Because of this, her fellow gems assign her a duty of being an encyclopedia writer. Great. You have no idea what this little task spirals into. Something that should have been limited to small slugs turned into a multi-century-long exploration of everything physical and We will get to that. These gems live on this beautiful, luscious green island, them roaming these grassy plains like flower petals in the wind, the sun and the blue sky only elevating their luster. They live under the watchful eye of Sensei, a wise man whom every gem looks up to, and they spend their immortal lives basking under the sun until it darkens. A dark spot appears in the sky. Foreign invaders rain down arrows. The Fire Nation the Lunarians arrive. The only known threat to the paradise these gems have made, for thousands of years being hunted down by them. Almost every single time they appear, they take someone with them. From frame 1, inserting themselves as this looming, eternal, and terrifying force. Gems spend every waking moment of their lives fighting them, constantly losing pieces of themselves. As much as I made this world out to be a weeb's paradise, it's anything but. It's forged from loss, forgottenness, and empty, everlasting dark void. Their appearance leaves you with so many questions. Where did the Lunarians come from? That's, I guess, pretty obvious. Lunarians, moon, yeah. Who are they? Lunarians, okay. Anyway, the real question is, what do they want? And this is something we will find out later. But right now, I want to know why these guys turn to fart clouds when they die. Phos at first glance may be your typical dumbass, but what makes her so special is what she will become over time. We explore this world with her, meeting different gems and getting to know them. One thing I absolutely love about this series is its characters. It is this massive cast of colorful and unique personalities, and all of them, without exception, get their time to shine, allowing them to be developed. Hell, this character on my lock screen has like 10 lines of dialogue, but she is objectively the best character. Every other opinion is wrong, and no, I do not have a crush on an actual rock. Rather, that rock will crush me. As I mentioned, every single character is completely unique. Rutil, Board, Diamond, Cinnabar, all of them have their unique personality traits and their problems. Rutil is a doctor, she is very caring, but at the same time she has issues trying to move on from her past. Yellow Diamond is very mature and wise, yet she has long-lasting trauma after fighting so many battles. Cinnabar just wants to socialize, but virus is not allowing her. And I'm just scratching the surface. For these characters being actual rocks, they are rather human. But what makes them so much better is that they are under constant threat of being lost for good. And this very same reason elevates the Lunarians. Loss. But before we get into that, it's context time. Gems take their energy from the sun. In winter they have to go into hibernation for years. But with a temperature drop, some gems like Antarct actually take shape. Phos can't sleep, and for the next few years, they take part in chores. Antarct is teaching Phos how to be less useless with varying levels of success. They bond over their shared love of Sensei and just become friends, and as you can imagine, over many years, they become quite close. They develop this sibling-like relationship. On a one chilly yet clear day, Phos loses her arms, after which they go to get substitute materials. Phos loses control of her new alloy arms, and at the same time, Lunarians arrive. Antarct tries to defend Phos and... just like that, a immortal being, a friend, a beautiful gem, is gone, never to come back, but to forever haunt the life of Phos in the minds of the readers. This is another thing I love about the series. Loss, death, and the impact it has on the whole series. It is a monumental occasion. Even though death itself lasts for a few seconds, it's never forgotten. Their impact ripples across the entire series. Whilst most series bitch about killing one side character, Land will give you crippling depression. All of a sudden, these grassy green plains don't seem so appealing, huh? If death is used correctly, it can be a powerful tool, blah blah blah. I made a whole video about this and some people called me an edgelord for it. But it is true. After this moment, Foss loses that childlike wonder and shine in her eyes, becoming a hardened warrior, a competent spearhead. With those golden arms, she can be anything she ever wanted, but at a high cost. Every single time Foss loses a part of herself, she becomes less and less like Foss, and in turn, into something very, very different. Every single time Foss loses a part of her original body, she becomes completely different or discovers a new part of life. Firstly, she loses her legs, in turn opening up to the ocean world. Oh yeah, on a side note, there are these sexy fish people underwater, but they're not important right now, focus up. She loses her arms, experiencing a loss of a friend, becoming colder, calmer, and depressed. This change in her physical body is the very representation of her personal development, literally wearing it on her sleeves. And this development changes the world and its inhabitants. Gems start to depend on her. She is looked up to with respect and admiration. Oh yeah, all of a sudden she has power now everyone cares about her? Learn a lesson from this, kids. No one gives a shit about you until you have something to offer. This development keeps the story fresh without needing to constantly introduce ass-pull power-ups. And in turn, the series never stays the same even for a second. The world never stops moving. This applies well to our lives. As someone who is headed towards uni, change is scary. So please, like and subscribe so I don't have to work at McDonald's. It will help me a lot, and YouTube has this glitch where it randomly unsubscribes. This series is kinda miserable. And this made me discover something really interesting in the series. The way these characters deal with combat. When they fight, they frequently lose parts of themselves, and unlike us humans, they can't just regenerate. That piece you lost is permanently gone. Oh, you dropped your finger in the sea? Well, too bad, I guess you have 9 now. Imagine if you got a big scratch on your back and it just didn't heal. That's how it is here. And the way these gems deal with this is by literally covering it up with makeup, which I believe is the embodiment of the parallel of them trying to cover up their physical and mental imperfections. Not actually wanting to deal with it, but rather keeping the status quo as it is and just covering it up. You thought losing your legs was a big deal? Or your arms? Pfft, try losing your head for size, oh. Yeah. In another attack, Foss loses her head. After which, Gems decide to attach Lapis's head on Foss's body. Huh. Because these two beings have the same hardness level, it is possible to bring Foss back like this. But this changes her significantly. Whilst Foss wasn't the most genius writer and plotter, Lapis was cunning, deceptive, smart, and tactical, and those traits get adapted into Foss's personality. Every single event changes Foss, and it is the single best visual and mental display of development I've ever seen in any series. At this point, she basically has nothing in common with her past self. That blissful ignorance and childlike wonder is completely crushed. This is why I said, what makes her so good is not what she is now, but rather what she becomes over time. I've been talking almost exclusively about Foss, but that's because I simply had to convey the amount of development she undergoes because it's directly tied with everything else. She is very complex. But don't worry, there are other gems that get ample amount of development. But first, it's context time again. Like how I stated before, every single physical change in Foss alters her personality and perception, and with this, it ushers in a new, fully unique era of the series, and this time, it brings the deep dark abyss of space. Up until this point, the series teased this new arc many times. Sensei's mysterious interaction with the Lunarians, with the fluffy doggo Lunarians I really want to buy as a pet. Foss could tell something was off, every gem could, yet Foss is the only one that confronts him. She saw how nothing was changing and became an innovator, someone who brings in change. Her natural curiosity and need for answers drives the story forward. She is tired of the non-stop wars and wants answers, but a character who brings in change does not mix well with a world that refuses to change. Foss tries to communicate with the Lunarians. That didn't work, so the natural next step, as any sane person would think, is to fake one's death and sneak up to the Lunarian ship and fly to the moon. Genius! It actually kind of works. She meets the Prince what the f is his name? She meets the Prince He is the leader of the Lunarians, and without diving into too many spoilers, they make a deal. Lunarians will help a lot of the gems, including Pasparacha, and in exchange, these gems have to make Sensei do something. Something really important. Phos comes back to Earth and convinces a few gems and takes them with her to the moon. Obviously, some gems do not approve of this, and for the sake of Sensei and after everything Lunarians have done, they can't just turn a blind eye and say, "Oh yeah, these fart clouds are our friends now, yeah, let's go." They view Phos and others as traitors who compromise the safety of Sensei, and thus, once a large family begins to fight a civil war. It's actually painful to see how these gems, who once loved each other as a family, are now ripping into one another. And it's purely because of miscommunication. Things just happened so fast that these gems couldn't properly understand and comprehend what was happening. No one truly wanted to change and improve their lives and the world, and this sparked conflict. As I said, Phos, who brings in change, doesn't mix well with a world that refuses to change. Many of these characters' lives, their very motives were complete, yet they still were not satisfied. They could easily fix the world they live in and actually live better, but they refuse to. The point of this is to represent the development of the world. The side and main characters all progress the story. Everything develops. Ever since chapter 1, every side of the conflict, every character was there. Hey, it's Editing Leo here. In the original video, I forgot to mention a few things. I said how side characters get developed, but I didn't actually point out an individual who developed a lot in this arc. For spoiler reasons, but fuck it, I have to mention one. So remember how throughout the video I've been mentioning Rutiel and Pasparacha? Well, they have this really sad dynamic. Pasparacha for thousands of years has been in this comatose state, and Rutiel turned into a doctor just to wake her back up. For thousands of years she would try over and over and over again, and maybe every 100 years, for like 30 seconds, she would come back. And Rutiel was always in this perpetual state of torment non-stop, and this is where the final arc comes in. Phos, without Rutiel's permission, takes Pasparacha to the moon because she believes Pasparacha can actually wake up for good. And despite these good intentions, Rutiel absolutely loses it. This pain was almost routine to her, so now that this process is gone, she loses her mind. That once motherly and caring nature is completely rooted out with a ruthless attitude. She basically turns into a yandere. Even after Pasparacha comes back and visits Rutiel, Rutiel is still not happy because she wasn't the one who did this. She is still furious that this process she spent thousands of years was all of a sudden taken away and just dealt with somewhere else. This is what I mean with these characters don't actually like positive change. Everything they ever knew was constant suffering, and that was their whole life. And now that that can actually be changed, these gems can't cope with it. They are completely lost. And the same type of development which was actually set up from chapter 1 pays off a lot in this arc. A lot of characters do get developed, but I won't mention them. You know why? This video is already way too fucking long to edit. Now for something my brain cell can easily comprehend and does not need to do multiple mental gymnastics to properly convey. The art. The art is really good. It may burn your eyes if you read it in the dark, but overall, it's nice. It's not the most detailed thing in the world, and average panel shots look very average, but the magic appears with these massive multi-page spreads. They are absolutely astonishing. Despite this manga not being hyper-realistic and fucking... oh god. Ichikawa turns simplicity into complexity, balancing many different shadings together. Choreography and almost robotic eye for symmetry makes this series have this unique and almost alien feel. However, there is one problem. Characters are hard to distinguish at times, especially later on in the series where these gems actually lose their luster. And even before that, these gems have the same body types, very similar facial features, and only difference is their hair. And even that in most cases is hard to tell because these gems are meant to be colored. And I don't know if you knew this, but the manga has no color. The color isn't there for that added layer of individuality. Sure, you can obviously tell Pasparacha and Wart apart because they have these incredibly luscious hair, but most gems don't have that. And this is where the anime comes in. The anime is 3D CGI, and I know you're suffering from PTSD and shell shock right now just from hearing that, but it's actually good 3D CGI. And it actually improves on the source material. And no, you took your meds correctly today. The 3D CGI surprisingly fits incredibly well with Ichikawa's original vision of the manga, and the creative liberties taken for some of these shots truly elevate the original source material. It is absolutely amazing. It takes full advantage of the CGI nature, and gives us some of these incredible one-take shots. However, we did get to see what land would look like in 2D, but it kinda looks like a cheap Chinese knockoff of the original thing. In my opinion, the anime is the perfect adaptation of the manga, and because of this, I'd say you go and watch the anime and start reading the manga from chapter 36, since that's where the anime leaves off. I have to stress this even more. Despite this video being, oh god, I really didn't go into detail on everything. If anything, I didn't talk about so many things. For example, I didn't talk about the newest 2 arcs. I didn't talk about so many side characters and their original plots. And that's because this video is meant to actually recommend you this series, not tell you a synopsis. I want you to go and read this series and explore everything it has to offer on your own, because honestly, it is incredibly challenging to properly convey the ideas I actually wanted to convey. You have no idea how deep the lore of this world and its characters is. I barely even tackled the actual world. And I want you to take up this manga and experience it yourself. It may give you depression, but it is really worth the read. It's beautiful, it's terrifying, and it is a one-of-a-kind series.